Aloha, and welcome to this webinar we call Legacy 102, Leaving a Gift as Your Legacy. I am Darcy Yukimura, Vice President of Philanthropy at Hawaii Community Foundation. We have a wide variety of people joining us today, including members of our Board of Governors, members of our Legacy Society, donors with funds who are considering leaving a legacy gift, as well as community members just beginning to explore working with HCF. We're grateful to each of you for taking time today to be with us. Today's topic explores leaving a charitable gift through your will or trust to our community and how you might do that through HCF. Charitable gifts made through trust and estate plans sparked the creation of Hawaii Community Foundation in 1916. And the people of Hawaii have continued to give generous charitable gifts after they pass. So much so that much of the $85 million in grants HCF gives out each year can be traced to those who have come before us. Their generosity continues to help Hawaii, even in their absence. You'll hear a lot of information today. Please don't let it overwhelm you. We are here to help. You're welcome to use the chat box at the bottom of your screen to ask questions that will be addressed at the end of the presentation during the Q&A. In addition, this session is being recorded, and a link to it and the slides will be available to you next week. Of course, you're welcome to contact us after today's event to discuss the type of legacy gift you are considering. Today's speakers feature three of our most experienced staff: Kavena Beaupre, Senior Vice President and General Counsel; Martha Hansen, Senior Director of Donor Relations and Communications; and Janelle Lyman, Director of Plan Giving and Advisor Relations. They will be sharing stories of impact, how HCF can help, and how to work with your professional advisor to support the causes you care about. Now our first speaker, Martha Hansen.
Aloha. What kind of legacy do you wish to leave? There are many meaningful legacies. Certainly for those of you with children, your offspring are your legacies. But with or without children, we create our legacies every day in how we live, the lives we touch, the work we do. These are all important ways we help make Hawaii better. However, today we're talking about what you've accumulated materially over a lifetime. Your things are not who you are, but you can use them to create another lasting legacy that expresses the life you lived, shares your hopes and wishes for those who follow, and makes a difference in the lives of people you will never know. So as you make your estate plans, you'll first want to make arrangements to take care of your bills, provide for your family, and perhaps acknowledge your friends. But then what? What gift would you like to leave for the future, for the community? Think of this gift as the gift of your lifetime. What is a legacy that you wish to leave that best reflects your life and your wishes for the future? Here are some questions that may be helpful in considering this. Is there an organization that has made a difference in your life? A few years ago, an older gentleman and his daughter visited HCF. He was a successful physician from Southern California, educated on the East Coast, originally from Hawaii. His wife had just died. He and his daughter wanted to discuss a possible legacy gift. After hearing about his life, we asked, "Who do you have to thank for your great success?" And the man started to tear up. His daughter was concerned and asked, "Are you thinking about Mom?" And he shook his head no. He had just realized that Palama Settlement had made all the difference in his life. His drive, his education, and his success all started there. Is there a person who has made a difference in your life and you'd like to honor them by giving to a cause important to them? We have several scholarships established to honor teachers who touched their students' lives. Here's another example. Fred Baldwin was one of 8 children of Emily and Henry Baldwin. He attended Yale University and graduated in 1903. He returned to Maui and managed the family ranches for 2 years. Then while vacationing with relatives in New York, he fell ill, underwent surgery for an appendicitis, and he died 7 days later at the age of 24. More than a century later, his memory lives on through the philanthropy of the Fred Baldwin Memorial Foundation, established by his parents. Since 1988, Hawaii Community Foundation has been administering the Baldwin Foundation. Over those 34 years, the foundation has dispersed more than $7 million. Another question is, do you wish to leave a legacy that expresses your values and that of your family? Certainly the Baldwin family did that when they created the foundation. They're so connected with Maui, and they wanted to benefit the people of Maui County with a preference for projects in the arts, education, environment, health, and human services. Is there an organization or area of interest that has enhanced your life and you'd like to give back? We have donors who wish to leave gifts to the schools they attended or the schools where they worked, to sports organizations or arts and culture. Others choose libraries, and then of course there are the joy that our pets can give us. What are you passionate about? I know a woman who is passionate about opera and has taught voice. How appropriate that her name and her partners will continue to appear in the opera list of contributors long after their passing. Was there an experience or service that made a profound difference to you or a loved one that you would like to make possible for others? We have donors whose daughter has a rare genetic disorder and they wish to fund research into gene treatments to address it. Others have chosen to give to hospice or cancer research or mental health programs because of the help that they received themselves or for others they hold dear. Is there something you wish to change or preserve in Hawaii? This environment certainly comes to mind. We have donors leaving legacy gifts to specific environmental organizations and others leaving gifts to the Natural Environment Fund at HCF. Their legacies will help provide resources to meet the environmental challenges ahead and preserve the beauty and native flora and fauna of these islands. Here are 3 other questions for you to consider. Do you want your name to live beyond you? You could start a fund in your name at HCF to do that, or talk to the organizations that you wish to support to see if they have naming opportunities. How much will your legacy gift be? Now, don't be frightened by this question. You won't be held to your answer when all is said and done, because none of us know how much we'll need over the course of our life. However, your best guesstimate of the size of the gift that you may make is useful as you are making your legacy gift plans, because it may influence the vehicle that you choose to use to make your gift. Janelle will be talking about this in a few minutes. Do you want your legacy gift spent outright over a period of years or invested to make a portion of the income from the investment granted every year? For example, there is a donor who wishes to support environmental causes immediately upon her death. In her mind, there is no time to wait. Others wish to disperse the funds over 10 to 20 years. They aren't interested in making gifts forever. Others may choose this approach to prevent overwhelming a small organization with one large gift. Gifts that are invested and a portion of their income is given out every year are called gifts in perpetuity. In other words, they are gifts that keep on giving every year forever. So an endowed fund provides funding year after year, and disbursements in time will surpass the amount of the original legacy gift. So let me tell you a story. Marie Coley was born in Switzerland about 1880 and trained as a nurse. She eventually came to Hawaii and became a governess to a Kama'aina family in Honolulu, and later helped the family's aging parents. A 1940 census noted that she had an income of about $1,300 in 1939, the equivalent of $26,000 today. When Marie Coley died in 1968, she asked that her estate establish a fund to benefit several organizations. One of them was the YWCA that receives 1/8 the proceeds from her endowed designated fund. In 1993, the fund was passed to HCF to manage. Since then, Marie's fund has given more than $100,000 to the YWCA and to each of the 7 other organizations she chose to benefit. Above all else, keep your legacy flexible so the future has the means to address whatever challenges arise. 45 years ago, AIDS didn't exist as far as we knew. 30 years ago, school shootings were a rarity. 25 years ago, we just started hearing about climate change. And 3 years ago, no one had heard of COVID. Over that same period of time, we have seen great technological advances. The only thing I know about the future is that there will be many changes that I surely can't predict. Some of those changes will bring great challenges and others will bring great opportunities. All I know is that I want to leave some resources to the future so that those who follow us may have the means to address those challenges and opportunities that I cannot even begin to imagine today. When you know the type of legacy you'd like to leave, or even if you'd like a sounding board for your thoughts about your gift, we can help you here at HCF. To share how we can do that is our Director of Plan Giving and Advisor Relations, Janelle Lyman.
Mahalo, Martha. Oh, that was a lot of food for thought to consider, even for myself. How do I want to be remembered? Who had an impact in my life? What is my kuleana and responsibility to my family and community? Other questions to ask yourself: who's going to help build my legacy? How do I build it? The first step, you're here, and HCF can help you. So in this next section, it's going to be filled with a lot of substantive information. And as Darcy mentioned, don't be overwhelmed. Some of you already may be, but if you have any questions, definitely put them in the chat box below, or you can always contact us and our philanthropic advisors at your convenience. So first you ask, why HCF? Our dedicated staff on Oahu, Kauai, Maui, and Hawaii Island can share with you our 106 years of experience. Later on, Kavena will share stories of impact of the funds created decades ago that keep on giving. We're experts in charitable giving, from education to the arts to homelessness, health, and environment. We know our community. And we work with your professional advisors to support and help you with your tax planning and charitable goals. We accept many different types of assets that smaller charities may not accept. For example, real estate, retirement funds, life insurance, appreciated securities, closely held businesses, and very soon, cryptocurrency. And finally, we're committed to ensuring that your charitable goals are met now and for future generations. We know that the decision to leave a legacy is special. For some, it's comforting to know that after you're gone, a part of you will live on. Your family and friends will never forget you, but a legacy goes beyond memories. Legacy gifts are about love, hope, purpose, and a higher calling to do something amazing for the community and others. HCF is honored and privileged to play a role in the lives of our donors to carry out these legacies. So Martha and I provided a few considerations for you to think about the what and why a legacy gift to HCF. And once you know what you want your legacy to be, you can start building it. So that's the how. So how? Generally, legacy gifts are established through 1, your will or trust, and 2, through a beneficiary designation. Professional advisors, which could be your attorney, financial planner, insurance agent, banker, they all play a key role in the drafting and documentation of a legacy gift to HCF. So for a legacy gift through your will and trust, we work with your professional advisor, which is usually your estate planning attorney, to take 3 simple steps. The first step is naming HCF as a beneficiary in your estate plan. At your direction, HCF works with your attorney to provide sample language for your will and trust, which will specify how much of your estate is to be transferred to your fund at HCF for the benefit of the community. So this portion could be a specific dollar amount, a percentage, or kind of a catch-all phrase, which we say the rest, residue, and remainder of your estate. In step 2, it's HCF preference to have a written memorandum of understanding. We call this an MOU, and this works together with your will and trust. And the MOU basically documents your charitable interests and desires and provides a better direction as to how you want your gift to be administered. The good thing about an MOU is that it's revocable. So your charitable interests really aren't directly included in the language of your trust. So you don't need to go back to your attorney to make any changes. And you can make these changes to your MOU as many times as you like with no cost to you. Our philanthropic advisors at HCF, myself and Martha included, we regularly meet with our Legacy Society donors to make changes to their charitable gifts. In fact, actually, I met last week with a donor to consider changes to his MOU from a fund that supports ocean cleanup efforts to now he changed his mind to a fund that perhaps supports his college alma mater. The last and final step happens when you pass away. At that time, we work with your trustee to transfer the assets to HCF to establish a fund. So for those of you who may not have a will or trust yet, perhaps the simplest way is to establish a legacy through a beneficiary designation for assets such as life insurance, annuities, or retirement accounts. The steps are basically the same, except instead of having a will or trust, you fill out a beneficiary form that you get from your advisor, or you can find one online if you're Fidelity or Charles Schwab. A lot of different houses have them online now. So on the form, HCF would be listed as a beneficiary. If the form asks for a social security number, that number is our employee ID number, which is on our PowerPoint slide. And also a good fact to know, it's on the bottom left-hand corner of every page of our website. So to be sure that we know what you want us to do with your funds, again, these are funds from your life insurance or retirement accounts. We ask that you document your plans again in an MOU, just like the MOU that we would use for a will and trust. As for what type of fund for your legacy gift, your fund option really depends on what you want to do with your legacy. So think back to the questions that Martha walked us through. What is the impact or change you want to make in the community? What is the approximate amount of your gift? Is there one organization or cause that has made a difference in your life? And do you want your gift to continue in perpetuity? HCF administers over 1,100 funds, and we have several different options and gift types to choose from. So one option is to give an outright gift to an existing fund at HCF. For example, we have a community scholarship fund. This supports scholarships for low-income students many of whom are first in their families to attend college. Or it could be used for foster children, or sometimes the fund is used for students that have unique educational circumstances. In fact, actually, I had an inquiry on Monday from a donor that was interested in making a donation to this fund. But she also wanted her gift to go to a McKinley High School graduate. This is a pooled fund. So instead, I talked to her about customizing her gift. And you can customize your gift by creating either an endowed or a non-endowed fund. So Martha earlier gave us a brief example of an endowed fund, which is created. So the endowed fund she gave was the example of Marie Coley, and it benefited 8 different organizations. An endowed fund is a permanent fund where the assets are invested and untouched. A portion of the income growth is used for grants to support community causes or organizations you care about. And to preserve the growth of the fund and assets and ensure a steady stream of income, the amount for grant making is limited to the foundation's payout policy. So currently that payout amount is 4% of the average account value over a period of 48 months. And we use this 48-month average to kind of mitigate market fluctuations and stabilize the income. And so this is where it's really handy to have a sense of how much your legacy gift will be. So for example, in Mrs. Coley's case, the gift benefits 8 organizations. And if the current market value is about $100,000, the 4% payout is $4,000, which would come out to $500 per charity. Going back to a consideration that Martha raised, what impact or change do you want to make with the gift? So in today's dollars and inflation, you might really want to consider reducing the number of beneficiaries from your fund so you can increase your impact. For a non-endowed fund, the fund is not subject to any spending restriction, so no 4%, and the entire fund is available for grant making. So you think of a non-endowed fund as a spend down fund, which may last for a set amount of years. Our donors express their charitable passions through the funds that they establish at the community foundation. And we know that we are a reflection of their philanthropy, their generosity, and their pure aloha. So there are many ways to partner with us to carry out your legacy. And Covenable Prey, our general counsel, will next take us through some of these ways to provide you with examples of their impact.
Mahalo, Janelle. So this next section focuses on the various types of funds that can be used to carry out your charitable wishes beyond your lifetime. The first way is through a designated fund. And a designated fund is really a way that you can support one or more charitable organizations that are important to you. And it provides an annual payment to the organizations that you designate, hence the name designated fund. And this can be done for a specified number of years, or it can be permanent. And you can also determine the percentage that each organization will receive. So like how Janelle had talked about. And as you can imagine, for our local nonprofits, having a steady stream of annual income can make a tremendous impact and to help move the needle on the work they do in our community. Now, one example of a legacy gift that supports charities that were important to the donors who left a gift were that from Jack and Marie Lord. Many of you may remember Hawaii 5-0 icon Jack Lord. Well, he and his wife Marie were very savvy investors, and they accumulated a large investment portfolio before their passing. And so with the assistance of their advisors at First Hawaiian Bank, the Lords gifted $40 million to HCF. And through their trust, they created the Jack and Marie Lord Fund. It's a designated fund that provides a significant amount of annual income to 12 Hawaii charities. And you can see them listed on the slide here. This gift is one of the largest made to HCF, and it's unique because it was made by a TV celebrity, but really anyone can create a designated fund to support their favorite local charities. Most times donors like the Lords choose to provide unrestricted support, which basically means that the nonprofits can choose what they want to use the income for, whether it's operating costs or a capital expense or program costs. And HCF highly encourages that the fund be unrestricted. However, we do have some designated funds that restrict what the nonprofit can use the support for. And this can have an unintended negative effect sometimes. So for example, one designated fund supports a library, but the fund can only be used to purchase new books on topics that are related to health and wellness. And because of this restriction, the library has really had a hard time using the funds. And in some years, they have even told us that they can't use it because they're a small library. They either don't need to buy more books on health and wellness, or they just don't have the room for it. So while it may be your preference to specify or limit what the nonprofit can use the support for, we highly encourage unrestricted support. Another way to partner with HCF to carry out your legacy is through a field of interest fund. And a field of interest fund supports a cause or an area of interest that is important to you. And this could be something like early childhood education, the arts, the natural environment, or a specific geographic area like the island of Kauai, which, as you'll see in our example, our next example, is what was done. So during her life, Ruth Knudsen Hanner, pictured here on the left, established the Annie Sinclair Knudsen Memorial Fund to benefit the island of Kauai, where she was raised on a cattle ranch in Waiawa. Now, she named this fund in honor of someone that was very special to her, her grandma, Annie Sinclair Knudsen, pictured here on the right, and from where her love for Kauai was born. Her grandma came to Hawaii in 1863 and was a social worker and established the first social services for Kauai residents. And Ruth greatly admired her grandmother's work and her devotion to this Kauai community. And so to permanently memorialize their shared love for the island of Kauai, Ruth established a field of interest fund to serve Kauai's needs for eternity. And, in addition to creating this fund during her life, Ruth named HCF in her estate plan. And so upon her passing, an additional gift was added to the fund. So the fund supports numerous Kauai-based nonprofit projects to today, ranging from job training and empowerment skills for women to meeting basic needs for key social services. A third way you can partner with HCF to carry out your legacy is through a scholarship fund. And scholarship funds provide financial support to students for post-high tuition and other related educational expenses. And there's a variety of eligibility criteria that you can place on a scholarship fund, such as being a graduate from a particular high school or pursuing a specific major. But as you'll hear later, less criteria is better. An example of a legacy gift that established a scholarship fund is that by Alejandra Ramos, also known to her friends and family as Elise. A first American born to Filipino immigrant parents and raised on the Waipahu sugar plantation, Miss Ramos left a legacy in the work and in her work and in the community that she cared for, as well as the scholarship fund that she established with HCS after her passing. Miss Ramos was a state public health nurse for almost 30 years, and in 1998, she won the State's Employee of the Year award for doing the extras. She would, help her neighbors, take them shopping to buy groceries. She noticed there were kids that might not have gotten, Christmas presents, so she bought Christmas presents for them. She even drove patients around on weekends to their appointments or to get shopping done. She had this mantra of helping people and was quoted as saying, "You earn your money, you can put it in the bank, or you can help people." And helping other people is exactly what she did, both during and after her lifetime. Through the assistance of her trust and estate attorney, Ms. Ramos named HCF as a remainder beneficiary of her estate, which included her home in Waipahu, and she directed that the proceeds from the sale of the home be used to create a scholarship fund called the Alejandra Tanque Ramos Fund. And as you can see, she kept the eligibility criteria quite broad: resident of Hawaii, financial need, academic merit. And I wanted to specifically point this out because having very basic criteria, really does allow more students to be eligible for the fund and therefore benefit from the scholarship. We do have scholarships that tend to pile on eligibility criteria because they have, a specific type of student in mind that they'd like to support. For example, one scholarship fund requires that the awardee be a full-time graduate student enrolled at a specific university, must have graduated from a Hawaii public high school, and must be committed to teaching in the Hawaii public school system, with a preference for those who intend to teach math or science. And, because this criteria is really so specific, it's hard for us to find a student that fits this exact profile. And so there are years where we can't award the scholarship because there's no applicant that is eligible, meets the eligibility requirements. So just something to keep in mind if you plan on creating a scholarship fund, and we'd be happy to work with you on this. The last type of fund I'd like to share with you has already been mentioned a little bit in the beginning. It's called a pooled fund. So pooled funds can help maximize the impact of your legacy gift by combining it with others and thereby increasing the resources that are available for the causes that you would like to support beyond your lifetime. And some examples that have been given already, but I'll highlight them again, are our Catalyst Fund, our Community Scholarship Fund, and we also have our Change Fund. So one donor who left his legacy through utilizing pooled funds is our donor, Steve Lovell. He was raised on the mainland and he made his way to Hawaii Island in 1970, where he found the love of his life and a place and a community that just really embraced him. And so when he passed, he left a generous legacy gift to benefit 3 pooled funds at HCF, the East Hawaii Fund, the West Hawaii Fund, and the Community Scholarship Fund. Steve's younger sister said Steve's hope was to express his love for Hawaii Island itself and his desire to help and to educate, so to provide the fishing pole instead of the fish. The Community Scholarship Fund is just one example of the power of combining funds for a greater whole. It was actually started back in 1993 by Joan Bellinger with a gift of $200. Since then, the Community Scholarship Fund has received 333 gifts from 171 donors, and it's grown to an endowment size of over $2 million. Over the past 25 years or so, 645 students have received scholarships from this pooled fund to advance their education. So I know this may have been a lot, but I hope these examples of legacy gifts and the funds that they created illustrate the very meaningful impact that legacy donors have in our community and the nonprofit sector. And now I'd like to pass it back to Janelle to close us out.
Mahalo, Kawena. Just really love the examples and stories of impact. We wanted to close out today with you knowing that anyone can leave a legacy gift, no matter how big or how small the amount. It's always appreciated to help support students and the community. And the best gift is one that is broad, like Kawena gave some examples, very flexible and unrestricted, that has a long-term impact that addresses the future needs of our island community. So we do have a few more minutes, and we did save these minutes for questions at the end. We'll check our chat box here to see if there's any questions. But we do have a few questions. So I see Martha's come on. Here's the first question that we received. I've made a legacy gift to HCF in my will and trust. Do I tell you about it?
Yes, yes, please. We would love to know if you're including us in your will and trust. And there are really 2 reasons for that. The first is because we need to know what your expectations are and that we can fulfill them. So I really encourage you to let us know. We would encourage you to do an MOU with us, because we want to understand what your desires are, and we want to document them so that when you're gone, and chances are the staff you're working with are gone, the people who will be administering your fund are very clear on what you want. We also want to know what your expectations are so we can be sure we can fulfill them. And if we can't, we can work that out with you. But so number 1, yes, let us know so we can know what you want and be sure we can do it. And 2 is a reason that's very close to my heart. We want to thank you. And if we wait to thank you, if we don't know and we wait to thank you after we receive the gift, that's not going to do much good. We really want to thank you while you're with us. And we automatically, when we know you're intending to leave a gift through HCF, make you a member of our Legacy Society. And the point of the Legacy Society is to provide opportunities so that you can experience the kind of impact your gift will have after you're gone. And it also gives you an opportunity to meet like-minded folks. So please let us know.
Okay, great. Also, another reason for you to tell us that you have a legacy gift. Sometimes we'll work with you, and we have a lot of donors who are legacy donors who are also current donors. So I worked with a couple who was updating their estate plan, and we were working on their MOU. And while working with them, they had a lot of questions about how their funds are going to be administered after they pass away. What kind of organizations do we work with? Of course, we have such a huge knowledge and deep knowledge of the community. So they really wanted to take advantage of that knowledge. The couple already gave annually to various charities. So we actually worked with them to open a fund currently. And so now every year we get to work with them. They get to know more of the type of grant making we would do in the community. And in fact, actually, I'll be meeting with them next week to also suggest changes to their MOU based on their current giving. And so actually this leads to a second question that we do have, which is, do we have the ability to do direct giving? And I'm going to give that to Kavena.
Thanks, Janelle. I can talk about, I guess, from a legacy gift perspective. Directed giving can be accomplished through setting up a designated fund. So that was the fund that I talked about in the beginning, which is where you can choose the charities that you want to support beyond your lifetime. And it could be one, or it could be two or more. But we do, encourage you to keep in mind the amount of the payout that will go to the charity, considering our 4% annual payout. So like Janelle had mentioned, if you are able to leave a legacy gift of $100,000, but you pick 4 different charities to support, each charity would get, $1,000 each every year. But if you were to support just one of those charities, they would get the entire $4,000. So just something to think about when you're, planning out the charities that you want to support, as well as the amount and the impact that it can provide to them.
And I can talk a little bit about lifetime directed giving during lifetime. And, usually we do this through what we call a donor advice fund. So the donor advice fund is really our most popular fund. The legacy donor that I worked with that opened a fund, that's what they opened. They used the donor advice fund to give their current giving. And so how it works is that the donor makes a gift of cash or other assets to the fund. The donor receives an immediate income tax deduction for his charitable contribution, and then the assets in the fund are invested. The donor can advise on the investments and the distributions from the fund that goes to a qualified charity. And then they can give the recommendation of where it goes, and it can either be right away, over a period of months, or even years. So really the true beauty of a DAF, a donor advised fund, is that it's simple, it's flexible, straightforward, and it's a way for the donor to get an immediate tax benefit and then manage their charitable giving. For the minimum to open a non-endowed DAF is $10,000. And so talking about costs, this leads to our third question that came in earlier. It says, please discuss costs involved for setting up a scholarship or other options. So I'll toss this to Martha to answer.
Yes, a scholarship fund. Okay, whether it's if you're setting up a current one or you're setting up one after you pass, the administrative fee on that would be 1.5%, and that's on the market value of the fund. So the minimum for an endowed scholarship fund is $50,000. So that would produce, with a 4% payout, $2,000 for each scholarship grant. The other options that Kavena talked about, the designated fund and the field of interest funds, the administrative fees for that range from 1% to 2%. And any one of our philanthropic advisors would be more than happy to speak with you, give you more details, and talk about what your options might be.
Thanks, Martha.
Mhm.
Let's see. We do have a few more minutes, so if you want to ask some questions, ask away. And we do have another question that came in. It says, can you recommend a corporate trustee to name as a successor trustee when we're both dead? I'll let Kavena answer this question.
Yeah, I can take this one, Janelle. So I wouldn't say that we would recommend any particular corporate trustee, but we have worked with corporate trustees at both First Hawaiian Bank, Bank of Hawaii, as well as Central Pacific Bank. And there are also smaller shops in town, such as Estate Administration Services, Maximum Legal Corporation. There's another one that's skipping my mind, Janelle. I think it's CIS. I can't remember what it stands for, but I mean, there are a host of, people or organizations that can serve as corporate trustees for you. And we'd be happy to, talk more about this offline and give you some of the people that we've worked with, at least, if that would be helpful.
And sometimes it's sometimes it's a fit based on your assets that you have. So certainly give us a call, let us know. Let's see, any other questions that came in? So I have a question maybe for Martha that might be able to answer. What happens if I leave a gift to an organization that ceases to exist?
Oh, sure. If that happens, then we will find another organization that is fulfilling the same purpose of your gift and see that the funds go there. So it's going to continue to fulfill the purpose of your intent, though it won't be going to the same organization. So an example of that would be like the Honolulu Symphony Orchestra. We have endowed funds that are to support the Honolulu Symphony Orchestra, and then it closed. And then the funds were moved to, or were given each year rather, to the Hawaii Youth Symphony. And when the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra started, they were moved to that organization. So through all of those transitions, we were always supporting symphonic music in the islands, which was the intent of those donors was. So that's what would happen in those cases.
And I can also add to that, Janelle, too. So if you have a designated fund that supports more than one charity, we can also, or you can also specify in the MOU that if one of, say, maybe 4 charities that you designated ceases to exist, then that charity's portion will be split amongst the remaining charities. So the 3 that are left would just take what the one was entitled to. So that's another way that we can ensure that the money is still getting to the charities that you wish for.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kavena. Thank you. Any other questions? I don't see any questions, any more questions. Anything else you guys want to add, Kavena, Martha?
No, I just want to say mahalo to everyone for joining us, and thank you to Janelle and Martha for being my co-presenters. Super enjoyed working with you guys, and we hope that, if you are willing or looking at leaving a legacy, that you contact one of our philanthropic advisors.
And I'd like to add my thanks to the 2 of you, as well as everybody who joined us. And I invite all of you to become members of the Legacy Society, because I'd be delighted to have you at our events. And I promise I'll do my best to take good care of you as Director of Donor Relations.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. We appreciate you being here with us today, and mahalo, and hopefully we'll get to see you soon.